Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Can you hear
We're
me?
great. It's awesome.
Yeah, we're good.
We can hear you loud here.
Okay, fantastic. Go on, open us up, Kirsten. It's the time. Let's roll.
Let's roll. Instructions from Lay Brother. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Modern Christian Mondays. We need like a y'all. Somebody help us with a jingle. We need like some type of modern Christian.
Like Auntie Tab.
Like what?
I said like Auntie Tabitha and her song. We got to figure something.
Auntie Tabitha, inspo. We're going to have to go get some inspo from her. Right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We are so excited. What are we on, like week 5 or 4 of Modern Christian Mondays?
I think 4.
We are in there like swimwear, guys. So thank you all for joining us. We are excited. Again, this is our platform for us to share our family life with you all. We are not flawless, but faithful. Amen. We say it every week because we want, that's what we promote. That's what we want everybody to know. So you all may live, just like us, you all may live authentic, real Christian lives. We're real, relatable, relevant conversations. So thank you all for joining us. If you have not heard, we now are available on podcasts.
Podcast.
Look at that. He's smelling like a proud papa. Thank you, Kim. So you can find us on Apple iTunes podcast. Google Play went live a couple of days ago, and we are on Spotify. So if you just type in on every platform, we are the Modern Christian Family. So if you just type that in on whatever device you have, and on YouTube as well, help us grow on all of those channels. So that is my plug. Derek, I'm going to toss it to you.
Well, you all want to say hi to some people?
Yes. Hey, Jabari. That's my best friend from high school. Kim is on. I think KK is on. Y'all wave at us. Twin is on.
Twin?
Hey, y'all. Oh, and do us a favor and share the broadcast. You all help us grow by sharing. And we need more conversations, more examples like this so we all can grow together. So do us a favor and share the broadcast.
I'm excited. I'm excited that you talked about the podcast, because if you don't know, this is part 2 of a conversation that we are continuing on loving through disagreements. And it's been a really, really great conversation. You can find the podcast for part 1 everywhere. And you can also find the YouTube on, you can also find the video on YouTube and Facebook. It's important because during that part 1, we talked a little bit about loving through disagreements in our history. We talked about it in childhood. We talked about me and Kirsten and my mom, and me and my dad. And then we talked a little about Emerald's childhood and upbringing. And so we did a lot of digging into just who we were as people during our growing up. Today, we're going to deal with some of the current things that we have going on, or some more modern day adulthood things, because as many of you know, we've had people that are youth like us that are now grown into adults. And when you become an adult, the dynamic of your relationships change with the people that are around you. The dynamic of who you are changes with people that are around you. So I'm excited because we'll be delving into how those dynamics have shifted. Hey, Ashley, are we having a problem, Kirsten?
No, I don't think so. I think she's just telling us that she's going to watch YouTube.
Okay, Ashley, you hear me? You made me think something was wrong. Okay, cool. So great. Okay, I apologize. So today I'm going to start with the newest addition to our adulthood conversation, which is my beautiful wife, Emerald, that's sitting here right next to me. And she's making this face because I think it's funny. We are having real, relatable, and relevant conversation.
Right. So y'all gonna talk about it?
So what we're going to start out with, we literally just came out of this conversation maybe 10 to 15 minutes ago, just delving into this conversation with my mom. And I'm not going to get into all the crazy details, but I will say the reason why I'm bringing it up is because we want to show you all that these conversations that we're having with you all are not just things that we're pulling from history. We're not just perfect. This is the true example of not flawless, but faithful.
Right.
So Emerald and I come from two very similar homes. I come from a two-parent household that are Christians. My parents were married for, I think when we were getting married, how many years? My parents were married for,
No, it's the same. So I don't know.
I think it's, when we got married, I think it was 33 years.
No.
And then, no, what was it?
More like 31.
31. Okay, so it's 33 now. So it was 31, and at the time, her parents were married for the same amount of years. And I'm bringing that up because it's cool that we both have the privilege. And it is a privilege. We understand everybody doesn't have this way. Twin said, "Look at this face." I know Twin because she's like, I don't know if she's come down yet. It's a conversation.
She's not back. She's not back.
But both of us have the privilege of having strong families, and we know that everybody else doesn't have that privilege. So I'll start this out by encouraging that you have to find the space, do whatever possible to find the people that are in your life who can offer you sound counsel. And whether if you don't have a strong mother figure, a strong father figure currently, you find somebody that can fill that role, that respects and honors you, that you'll listen and submit to. So we were having a conversation today about compromise. Ooh.
Ugly word, ugly word.
Ugly word. We were having a conversation about compromise. And even this moment is a compromise. I don't even know if M's like,
I didn't agree to talk about this.
Growing pains.
This is a good moment. I think we're talking about compromise from the perspective of we both are two individuals that have very strong opinions. Mm-hmm. We are both very strong in our thought processes. I had the joy of marrying an intelligent wife who has a great education, master's degree. And so we both have solid opinions on things. And I think what we have started to realize more and more is in this fresh marriage, how to allow our opinions to come into conjunction with one another in a way that suits us both. And the first point I want to bring out is something that my mom said nothing but an hour ago, which was remembering that we are not at odds with each other.
You're not enemies.
Not enemies. We are not enemies, and we are not at odds with each other. We were talking about a compromise, a situation just where we disagreed on whether something was a compromise, whether I did something because she wanted me to, or whether she did something because I wanted her to. Did we really compromise? Did we really not compromise? And I think in our conversation, we approached it from a place where we both felt that the other was wrong in a situation, which sometimes results in us listening to respond, listening to argue, listening to make our point instead of listening to hear one another. And Mom, I want you to jump in there and just kind of expound on what you were saying. You ain't got to talk details if you don't want to, but just what the point you're making.
Yeah, because really, I think that this is almost like profound and parallel in and of itself, because really most of the time, the details when it comes to this type of stuff aren't important. So I'm not going to go into the details because really the details don't matter. Even in the specific situation that you all were compromising or discussing a compromise on, or even in the subject matter of compromise, the details really are not the issue. When you're talking about compromise, the thing that you have to focus on is realizing and understanding, number one, whether it's a parent relationship, whether it's a friendship relationship, whether it's a marital relationship, no matter what the relationship is, you have to understand that when you are facing and you have two opinions and you're at odds, everybody has to remember that the person that you're doing with this with, whether married, parent, friend, whatever, you're not enemies. Yeah. And you're not at the point of compromise because you're you're not at the point of compromise because you're enemies. You are at the point of compromise because you have two different opinions, and that is life.
Oh, that's a good
People
perspective.
don't see things the same. So we have to enter compromise or discussions about compromise, understanding, number one, the person that I'm having this discussion with is not my enemy. Because that's our knee jerk, because the flesh people as us, we are selfish people. You understand what I'm saying? People innately are selfish and we want our way. So that's the whole thing about being a Christian, humbling yourself, keeping your flesh under, all of that. So you got to first recognize that. Secondly, you have to understand that the only way that you're going to listen to understand what someone is if you first don't see them as an enemy, because if you see them as an enemy, then you become defensive. And when you're defensive, you can't hear what anybody is saying. So a person may be saying, I feel this way about whatever. But if you're in a defensive mode, you're going to take that as a personal attack. And the person isn't attacking you. They're just trying to express their feeling. So long story short, don't look at the person that you're having an issue with, or you have to come to a compromise on. Don't look at them as if they are an enemy, and listen to understand. Yes, you may not agree with their feeling. Yes, you may not understand their feeling, but the fact of the matter is that they are telling you, this is how I feel. So you must acknowledge that feeling and deal with the feeling, as opposed to the intent or you not understanding.
So I'm going to jump in here because I think what y'all don't know, y'all are actually being let in on a marriage counseling session. So this is y'all are getting real relatable, raw content, because this is the type of conversation that we have with not just our parents. When we have her parents on at some point in this journey, her parents give the same sound advice. But I want to pose a question to Emerald because I think she has a very powerful perspective on this. I think there's also something to be said about how we assume somebody's demeanor means something, or we assume that their facial expression is saying something, or we look at an individual and we make the assumption that what we read off of them is indicative of their feelings. And Emerald has had many different, she's opened my eyes about this in so many different ways. So I just wanted her to talk from that perspective. Anything you want.
Okay. So I feel like I have experienced that in a lot of different areas or a lot of different arenas, not just in the marriage relationship. For whatever reason, I don't know. Okay, well, I'll start with like even way back in high school, people would tell me after they got to know me, oh my gosh, you're, such an amazing person, blah, blah, blah. But I was afraid to talk to you at first because, you just look like you're mean, or like I just felt like you
look like
we're not going to be a nice person, but you're like literally the best person ever, blah, blah, blah. And so, I've gotten that in various ways, in various forms over the years, as far as, I don't know whether it's my face, just my demeanor as a person, just how I overall come off. I don't know.
And it's important to know, I think, jumping in there, just because Emerald is by far, and I'm not saying this because I'm her husband, one of the most loving, caring, bubbly, dramatically funny individuals I have ever met. People think that I'm dramatic and funny. My family can attest. Emerald is one of the funniest, exuberant, excited, goofy people that you will ever meet in your life. So
yeah, so with that, I have learned to be a person who, number one, communicates how I feel, but also try to listen to when someone else is communicating what their true feelings are on something, even if my perception is wrong. Why? Because I've been wrongly perceived so many times that I know what that feels like. And so it doesn't feel good, and I don't want to make someone else feel that way. So even with us having a disagreement earlier today, it hurts me to know that I hurt him, even if it wasn't intentional. And so then you really have to step back and say, okay, so what are you feeling? And really listen to what it is that the person is trying to communicate with you about how they're feeling on something. regardless of your perception of it, or vice versa, regardless of, so for instance, for this situation, there was, he took something a certain way and had a feeling about something based on how he perceived my demeanor in the situation. And I'm, telling him, that was nowhere on the radar for me. That was nowhere did it cross my mind. But okay, I hear you and I understand, and I'm now letting you know that this is actually, where I was at with that. So just being able to communicate those things. Yeah.
I think the point that Emerald is making is we really as people have to realize and stop and not practice assumption. Assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. I heard one say. And when you assume you know how a person feels or you know what a person is saying, then it almost always leads you down the wrong direction and in the wrong place. So we have to take people for what they say. So like you can look at something as simple as a disagreement between two people or a perceived disagreement. If one person is saying to you, I don't have a problem, it doesn't matter what their actions are saying. If they're telling you, I don't have a problem, then you should receive it as they said they don't have a problem. And they don't have a problem. I know it's hard, but why would you try to keep going down that path because of what you think their emotions or their body language is expressing? Because if they're even if they're expressing all of that, if they're telling you out of their mouth that they don't have a problem, they could be flat out lying, but AKA they're telling you they either don't want to discuss it or they're not ready to discuss it. So your response to that is not like, I see how you're acting, I see what you're saying. Your response to that is not, I know you have a problem. If you're telling me you don't have a problem, then I have trained myself. Because guess what? I'm not going to make somebody else's issues mine. So I cannot force you to acknowledge that you have a problem. I cannot force you to talk about that problem. So if you're telling me that you don't have a problem, I have trained myself to accept you don't have a problem. And when you're ready to have that conversation, we can have that conversation.
Emerald has something to say.
And in training yourself to kind of take people at the word, then leave it at that. Even if they're lying. I had a situation before where I had a friend who I could tell she was upset with me. I didn't know why. And I approached her and said, hey, what's wrong? And she said, what's your problem? She said, I don't have a problem. I said, oh, okay. And I left it at that. And literally it lasted weeks, maybe months, honestly. And I never changed in my approach to her. Whenever I say, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah. And she could ignore me and act however funny she wanted to act. And months later, she came and was like, you know what? You were right. I did have an issue, and this is what was going on, and this is what happened, and then we were able to talk about it at that point. But I couldn't take on trying to figure out what's wrong with her. I asked you, you had an issue. You said there was no issue. I'm taking you for your word, regardless of whether or not you're telling the truth. I'm rolling with that.
I think that frames this conversation on loving through disagreement, even as modern Christians, because that is a form of love. Love says that I choose not to make an assumption about how you are feeling. And I trust, I use an agape, that agape love is that love without restrictions, or love without caveats, or love that's unhindered. So I don't love you only when you're telling me what I want to hear or what I want to know. I love you enough to trust that you will communicate with me and let me know when I have an issue, when you're ready to talk, when you want. And even on top of that, and this is how I want to close this before segueing into Mommy and Kirsten, even more so than all of that, that God is in the middle of the conversation. Oh, because I put a post a couple of weeks ago where I said, we were talking about something else, and I said, sometimes marriage may look like we're at odds with one another, but I have to continuously remind myself that God is in the middle, around, in between, and all through the conversation. So love means that even if we don't resolve it in this moment, I trust that my wife hears Holy Spirit. I believe she trusts that I hear Holy Spirit. So at the end of the day, Holy Spirit is going to speak to us. And if we trust him and love each other like we say we do, somebody somewhere is going to be moved by the Spirit of God to compassion, to compromise, to coming together, to understanding, to reasoning. And that's what I can be grateful for in all of our conversations, because in every conversation that we've had, my mom said it earlier today. She said, the one thing that y'all do is y'all talk. We don't have any problem going to counsel and talking about what we have going on. And I think it's because we have an understanding that at some point, God is going to move on one of our hearts. And we, at the end of the day, we will be on the same page. Dad, God will make sure of that.
Dad, is that how you would say you and mommy got through 33 years of marriage? 32? I think talking, Dad? Something's on mute, Dad. Hang tight with us, y'all. Well, would you say that, mommy?
Yeah. Well,
Dad, keep trying to talk and I'll tell you if we can hear you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. You just, a lot of people say it this way: choose your battles. He's not in for some reason, but a lot of people say choose your battles. And with regard to how you get through 33 years, how you get through 33 years is understanding that you can't make assumptions about how another person feels. You have to actually accept what the person is telling you. You accept what they say when they say it. So if they say, I don't like this, whether or not, or if they say, I felt like the way that you said something to me made me feel a certain type of way, you accept that. Don't become defensive and say, well, I didn't say it like that. You may not have said it like that, but the truth is you could have made them feel that way. And so that is the hallmark of compromise and having a good relationship. And not as it just relates to marital, but marital is even more so, because, that's the person you spend the rest of your life with. That's the person that you're with 24/7. And so when it comes to the marital relationship, you're not going to get through 33 years or anything else for that matter, without understanding that you have to see this person that you're with not as your enemy, and that whatever conflict y'all are facing, you're facing a conflict together to defeat the conflict, not to defeat each other.
That's good.
Right. I want to take that and I want to kind of segue into Mommy and Kirsten while we're getting Daddy together. And Mom, you can kind of take the beginning of this as Kirsten's helping Dad. But one of the things that we talked about recently is that my mother and sister have now moved into, let's just say, a new frame of their relationship. Kirsten is like grown up with my mom, and she's very much like my dad. So Kirsten,
Dad, can you speak?
There you are.
Awesome. All right.
You want to jump in there with thoughts? But Kirsten, want to ask you before we keep going?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You said ask the question. What got to our 30-some-odd years?
Yeah.
Feel like that type of communication got you through that?
Well, man, just I think learning that I'm the lead, and I have to come into I have to be the one to kind of reconcile us back.
Yeah.
Take the lead. You learn, because everybody's got pride, and that pride is a monster. And you got to learn how to push through your pride. I heard somebody a long time ago said the one that forgives is the one that bleeds.
Wow.
You gotta, and it hurts, because a lot of times we hold our positions and we want to be steadfast, but I challenge men to take the lead. You want to be the head of your house, then take the lead in reconciling when there's disagreement in the relationship. Take the lead. I mean, you want to lead in everything else. Why can't you lead in reconciling? I used to have a saying that if I went down a dark alley, why would you go down a dark alley? Because we were going to this really, really popular movie, and all the close-up parking spaces were away, and we were so late, we decided to go down this dark alley, and just to try to hurry up, get to the movie theater because we were late. And we ran into some bad dudes in that alley. Now, the question I ask is, would your wife, if she had a chance to get away, would she cut and run, or would she stay and help you deal with them unsavory people in that alley. And to a man, just about, well, maybe there's one exception, but most people would say that the wife would stay and fight. So you mean to tell me you know that the wife would sacrifice her life when she had a chance to run and get to safety? She would stay and fight with you and the bad guys in the alley. So you already know how much she loved you. So why you
That's
treating her
good,
like
Dad.
that?
Mm.
And it's like a revelation. People realize this woman would literally die for me. So why am I treating her like the gum on the bottom of my shoe?
Mm.
Something like that. It's a weird kind of thing, but it's a way of sobering up for men to realize this woman would die for me if put in a situation. So why am I treating her, like you all said, like my enemy? She's not my enemy. Just because we have a disagreement, why do we always go there and we get defensive like the person wants to hurt us? That's not the case. We just have a disagreement. We got to learn to have disagreements and disagree the right way. Why do we always got to go there? You know, why we always got to get mad and inflict pain and say words and things that hurt the other person? Why do we go there with the person that is the product, particularly the husband? That's the product of your intelligent choice. You made that decision. So why are you now damaging? Why are you damaging your words?
You were asking the question why, and I think there's really only one answer before Derek segues to his next point. I think that there's only one answer. We forget that confrontation is for reconciliation. We forget the goal of confronting an issue.
Yeah.
We forget why we need to talk about it. You have to keep in the forefront of your mind that confrontation is not for me to tell you off so I can express my feelings and then I can feel good. Oh, I got that. I clap back at you.
I be feeling,
and that's in any relationship, any type of relationship, because we want to clap back because it feels good to us physically and emotionally, but it does not reap any solution. So when you become solution driven in life, and I think some of this comes with age, because you know, as I age, I'm 50 something now. I know ain't is not good English, and I'm an educator, but I want you to get my point. I ain't got time to be trying to tell you off. I have more life. Well, I got about the equal amount of life in front of me as I have behind me at 50 something. So I don't have time to be enduring this foolishness. What is the solution? I don't care about telling you off. I know it's going to make me feel better, but I mean, and I know I'm going to like the way it feels, but I don't have time for that. My focus right now is what is the solution?
Derek,
that's perfect to jump in there to segue, because I think it frames what I was saying about you and Kirsten. So my mother and Kirsten are in a new relationship because my mom is the pastor of Lift City Church, and amazing that we love. And my sister now works pretty much her full time for my mom because of the cancer situation that my sister went through. She ended up moving to Louisiana with my mom. And now she pretty much works as my mom's right hand, everything.
I'm glad you know.
She's my personal assistant in the home. She runs the home.
I cook.
But it has changed the dynamics of their relationship. And I think this is important because they have now started to have many conversations where they have had to remind each other what the end result or the purpose was that they were trying to get to. And Kirsten, I want you to jump in here and speak to this, and you start talking to us about how you see relationship with mom now and where you're at.
So it definitely has evolved, and I think this is something that I didn't see coming. Moving. I don't think mommy saw it coming either, but just the dynamic and the evolution of our relationship, I didn't see what we've been dealing with lately coming with. So like when I say I didn't see it, I didn't predict having to, grow in these areas with my mother. It's like growing up, you just think that's my mom. It's always my mom. That's our relationship. This is like not that deep of a relationship. Not saying this is not that deep, but this is not that complicated of a relationship. And so once I moved, gained my strength back. And as I started to gain my strength back, I started doing more and more and working with my mom, like Derek said. And so the first thing that we had to realize was me and my mom basically haven't lived together since high school. Since I left for high school. 11 years. That's a long time. And so once we realized that it's now that we live together, 11 years ago, I was still a child. So I was still adolescent. Now, 11 years later, I'm a grown woman. So, I think on my own. I need a lot of explanation for why you want me to do things. And she knows, because she'll tell me to do something. And sometimes I will challenge her, because I will challenge her like, no, Mom, I need to know why I'm doing that. Because to me, it doesn't make sense. But to her, she's like, I'm your mother and you're going to do it sometimes. Now she does very well in this department, but for me, that no longer works. So it's like, nope, I'm not going to do it, because, and this is something I'll be transparent that I'm working on. If you know me, I grew up with a smart mouth. Don't know where it came from, but we're working on it. Jesus is working. And so even for me in my adult relationship with my mom, making sure that when I push back to her on a request that she may ask me, I'm working on being 100% respectful. And because me and my mom, we're very, we're like best friends. So it's like, you have to keep in mind that is my mother. Hey, best friend. Yeah, best friend. So we're best friends, basically. But a lot of times when we're having disagreements, this is some area of growth for me. We're talking about growing pains. This is painful, because I like to, is somebody clicking? Y'all, listen, if something happened, call 911, okay? I hear a little click clack. But what was I saying, Mom?
You were saying that you all are best friends, and you were getting into this is uncomfortable.
It's very easy for me to get comfortable with, I easily can slip into disrespect. And in my adulthood, the growing pain that I'm experiencing right now as an adult is making sure that even though I'm an adult and I have my own opinion, my own thought process, when we're trying to make decisions, the pain that I'm going through right now is making sure I don't slip into disrespect when I'm disagreeing with her.
Let's talk about why. I think this is a good moment to pull out of Kirsten. Let's talk about why you go there and why it can be perceived as disrespect. Because I think a lot of times when we have these conversations, we just write it off as disrespect, but it doesn't solve anything, because we don't deal with the reasoning why that person is going so hard, or why they feel so emotional, or why they feel so committed about what they're talking to. And just to give you a leeway into it, I feel like a lot of the time it's because you want what's best out of the situation.
Right. That's exactly right. And we've even come to exactly what you just said, me and Mommy, when we've had discussions, trying to figure out, why am I so passionate? Why am I I want you to do because I think she talked about it in her, in some meeting or something recently, about how you've been talking a lot lately about how I've become a source of improvement for you.
Absolutely.
Because now I'm in the house with her, and I'm seeing things from my perspective and giving my opinion on, hey, Mom, I think you should do this. And so she's been talking about how, I'm her child, but I'm giving her direction, and that it has never been like that. So we're growing through trying to grow through and adjust to that. And what Derek's talking about, the leeway into, we had to come to a point where we were like, well, I had to come to the realization where, why am I so passionate about this? Why am I so, emotional or charged up when I'm like, Mom, we got to get this right. And one of the things that we discovered was because it's out of my desire for her to operate her to operate at her best. And that's with my family across the board. Me and Derek, our growing pain growing up it resulted the same way. I'm seeing a parallel right now. A parallel, the same exact reason, because growing up, Derek, I would be so emotionally charged with Derek. And that's a growing point that I had to get through, is my delivery with my mom and with my brother. Because my brother growing up, the reason why we always had head butts was because my delivery, even though my heart was, no, I want you to be okay. I want you to get this. I don't want this to go bad for you. My heart was that, but my delivery was very harsh.
So can I say something right there? Because I think the point that you're making, and we need to make this very clear, we all have our own way of communicating that we lean to or are accustomed to.
Right.
But what you have to understand is, like in you and Derek's situation, Derek's communication language was different than yours.
Right.
You're very direct. If people don't know you, it could come across as very harsh. Derek doesn't deal that way. I don't deal that way. That's more you and your father. You and your father got the same spirit. Very direct. And if you don't know a person's heart concerning that, you will think that they're attacking you.
Right.
But the reason why they want you to be at your best, and they only want the best for you. So they're like, Kirsten is a total giver, just like her dad. Will go to the nines for whatever you need her to do, just like her dad. He's always been that way. So their desire, their drive, their hunger for you to have the best, be the best, make sure that everything's good, sometimes can come across as intimidating, as too direct, as forceful, as all of that. You have to know that that's their communication language.
I also think
my communication language is not the same. So what I wanted to say, I said all of that to make this point. You have to be able to shift so a person can hear you. And that's what she's trying to say. She had to learn that in order for me to hear her, she had to shift to how I communicate, how I can receive what she's saying, and vice versa.
I think that, oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that helps me too, knowing that that's his communication style, or that that he does not respond well to being so direct, because I think I am more of a direct communicator, like boom, 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 just get to the point, versus going around ways and sugarcoating and whatever else. So that is helpful for us as well.
Because you call it sugarcoating. And people like you who are direct like that, you call it sugarcoating. But people like me, I call it being diplomatically correct, because I don't want the person to throw up a defense. I want the person to hear me. So it's just a vantage point, and it's a different.
Yeah, and she definitely has the upper hand on me. And it's funny because I am good at that externally with people I'm close with. I'm real direct, but when it comes to people that, you know, like us, this internal circle, I'll be like, I don't have time to be around the
But I think
are the same in that, because I feel like outside people, or people that I don't have as close of a relationship with, I am very careful in choosing my words, and I always sandwich, and I'm like, you're so great, I need you to work on this. Amazing, like always giving it that. But with people that I'm super close to, it's like, let's, get to this. And for me, it's literally, we're just having a conversation. I don't really see what's wrong with it. But for you or somebody else could receive it as, you're attacking me. Why are you saying this to me like this?
I think this is good, because I want Daddy to jump in here, because I feel like this is something in these current days he is becoming more and more well versed in, which is, I think sometimes we have to attach or pair our love for a person with our empathy for a person.
That's good, Derek.
And I think that's the part that we forget. I can love you, but not be empathetic towards you. And empathetic towards you means I don't just love you from my perspective, but I come out of myself to seek how you need to hear something, how you need to receive something, how you may have lived your life, how you may be walking through something. And I think this is good, because we've been talking about race relations, and me and my dad are going to talk a bit more about this on Sunday. But I think we are in a stage where we have people, Caucasian people or people in the world, that we don't have a question that they love us or like us or are friends with us or care about us. But the problem is loving me and being empathetic enough to come out of yourself and to put yourself in the position of the person that you're talking to is a different is a different thing, because you'll realize that you're communicating in a style that they can't receive because they come from a different place of circumstances. They come from a different set of training. They come from a different home life, and all of that frames how a person receives from you in speech. So Dad, I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think you're
So let me go back. Let me kind of simplify it a little bit more. Let me ask some questions. How do people who start out in relationships, whether it's husband and wife, they're really strong, they court each other, they talk for hours on the phone, before they get married, they fall asleep on the phone. Pastor Tracy and I would talk for hours. Hey, you there? Yeah, I'm there. I was knocked out, but we for whatever reason, we don't want to hang up in each other. How do you go from that, calling, courting, flowers, candy, movies, spend your money, presents, birthday, all the sweet things that you say? How does and let's say from mother to daughter, father to son, he grew up, he took care of me, mama, she took care of me, even some of the stuff Kirsten and mommy were talking about. How do you start a strong relationship, and how does the reality for so many people, these relationships end up in shambles? You all were touching on it, but I'm asking you, bring that point out. Why does the relationship, what happens to cause a relationship that was once tight and then it falls apart? With close family members, we talk Martin Christian family, mother and daughter. What happens to cause that?
Dad, I want you to tell us.
That's easy. And for the sake of time, beat around the bush.
One of y'all said something. Go ahead.
And Emerald has a point too. Ma, go first, and then Emerald.
So to not belabor the time, I'm going to get straight to the point. The reason why in any relationship that happens is you begin to take people for granted. You become familiar with people. So the impression and infatuation stage passes. If you got a new girlfriend and you and your girl are hanging out, or you and your boy are hanging out, that infatuation phase passes. When it's a heterosexual relationship, a man and a woman dating, then you go through the infatuation, impression stage, that passes. Children and parents, you go through the infatuation stage, all of that passes, and then you become comfortable with people, and then you become familiar with people, and that at that point the respect begins to diminish, and as a result, we don't treat people or deal with people the same. So that's why you have to always be impressed with your parent or your spouse or whatever.
Hold on, Dad. Let Emerald go before you go, Dad.
I agree with that. So go ahead, Derek. Emerald was going to
let Emerald go real quick, because I know you're gonna wrap it up good.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think it also can be that you get comfortable, and then you also forget that this person, we actually have a common goal. We are on the same team. Right. So even though their delivery right now might seem like it's hurtful, we're on the same team. So I know that, or you should know that they're never intending to hurt you or never intending to attack you. But I think that gets forgotten sometimes, and you get so wrapped up in your own emotions that it's like, I can't believe they would do this and and I feel it's how it will fall apart if you allow those pieces of the emotions to eat away at you, and you forget, wait a minute, they love me, or we're on the same team, or we're in this together. So let me go and talk to them. Let's talk this out, and let me push my emotions to the side for a second to really hear or see where their heart is, because I know they wouldn't do anything intentionally to hurt me.
Dad.
So Emerald, tell me, you're hitting on it. So tell me, Emerald, when those emotions and that rewind and that replay of things that irk you, that draw people away, when do you spend the most time focusing on that type of stuff? When?
Or when you're angry? I don't know.
When you're angry, or in an argument. She said when you're angry or in an argument.
But when exactly? When's the time where it just plays over and over and over?
You're gonna have to
go to sleep.
I would say maybe when you're
go to sleep.
When you
When you go to sleep.
Isolation. Yep.
See, the rifts in these relationships are really one resolved conflict after another. And when you go to sleep, people say your mind is the devil's what?
Workshop.
Playground.
Sleep or isolation.
Yes, I think that's
he goes to work on that mind. That's why the Bible says, "Don't let the sun go down on your wrath."
Mhm.
You know, that doesn't
Oh, that's
necessarily
good.
mean it doesn't necessarily mean we resolve everything at night. But isn't it a better way to close out the night? Say, man, I just don't, I still don't agree with you on that. You know, and I got some strong feelings on that. Let's pick this up tomorrow because we've been talking about this. We've been dealing with this thing all day. Instead of just leaving it like that, because at night you think, you dream, you imagine the enemy goes to work on your mind, and that unresolved, when you wake up the next day, it's like if you haven't resolved the conflict, if you haven't gone to bed the right way, say we'll take to tomorrow, it's like putting a callus on it.
Right.
But Dad,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think when it's at night, but I also think that nighttime is significant of isolation or symbolizing isolation,
Right.
and which is the key thing the enemy would want us to do when we love one another. The whole point of disagreement and him festering those things is to get us to retreat to a place of isolation.
Right.
Because when I retreat to a place of isolation, I can't hear wisdom, I can't hear insight, I can't hear from the other person. And so we don't realize that many people, even some people on this call, you have isolated yourself within your own home. You have, and I remember that distinctly growing up, because that was one of the things that I went through with my family. I'll never forget my dad saying to me one time, "Derek, you come home and you go right to your room and you shut the door and you don't talk to us." And I could almost get emotional saying this, because I realized, and it took me a while, but I realized I was going through so much trauma in my mind, and I was so hurt by things that were happening in life, that I had convinced myself that the answer was isolation. That the answer to get through it was to shut the door and just handle it on my own, because these people who love me, they can't handle what I'm going through right now. I can't build up enough strength to be honest with them about it. So what I decided to do is isolate myself. So I would come home, shut the door, and I would go to the room every single day. And the devil would just talk, and I'm in a room alone, and he's just having for me.
Yeah.
You know you're thinking about it you're thinking about it all the way to sleep, because you cussing at one another right till you fall asleep. You snatching sheets, you slamming pots, and you just thinking about it. You go to sleep with that anger on your mind. And do you think sleep stops it? No. In your sleep, you're rehearsing it over and over, and it begins to get on the inward side of your heart, and it starts planting bad seeds. And then you wake up the next day and it starts all over, and the fence, and we got days and weeks and so on and so forth of our hearts being hardened and feeling some kind of way about that one unresolved conflict after another. And they just keep piling up, because we don't talk out. We don't feel like the relationship should be a safe haven, mother and daughter, father and son, husband and wife, but we don't treat it like we go on the attack. Y'all said it 50 million times. The person feels like you're attacking me, and we don't feel safe, so we don't communicate. We don't talk things out.
And
we don't
retreat.
share, and we don't. Huh?
We don't.
I think this is so important.
We retreat because we retreat and get ambushed. The devil
ambushes
us by ourselves. Go ahead, Kirsten.
I just was saying, I think this is so important because across the board in so many relationships, every time you leave a relationship unresolved, you allow the devil to take place in your relationship. And it's so easy for us to breeze over why this is important and why you need to fight for relationships, because if the devil, there is planned attacks against relationships, friendships, marriages, especially marriages, because why? Marriage is a relationship, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, one of the greatest relationships ordained by God that allows God's kingdom to be built through relationships. So why is the devil after your marriage? Why is the devil after your family relationships? Because if your family relationship is not strong, then he can start to take up space elsewhere in your life. And so it's just I just think it's important to point out why we're talking about relationships and why we're talking about learning how to love through disagreement and embracing growing pains, because your relationships are not always going to be all butterflies, you know, and it's so important to acknowledge that and accept that and walk in that authentically, and then move beyond that and figure out how can I win in this relationship? Because again, every time you leave relationships unresolved, some relationships, I'll put a caveat there, because some relationships need to be left unresolved.
I want to close there, Kirsten.
Because they're
toxic. Keep going past it, because I want to close with that.
Because they're toxic. So, you know, Derek will round out of that. But most times it's so important to learn how to fight for your relationships and grow through the pain of figuring out how to be in a healthy relationship with your loved ones. Because if you can't sustain these relationships, that's a way that the devil is taking
I think
taking what in people's lives. I'm missing a word, but
I think we're gonna shoot back to Derek, but I'm gonna help you out, because I think what you're saying, or what I hear you saying, is we oftentimes forget the relationships that we are in, whether it's spousal relationships, friendship relationships, church relationships, organizational relationships. As children of God, when God brings people into your life, they're there because they're a part of your purpose in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Wow. You literally took exactly what I was going to say.
And you have to understand that they're a part of the purpose. And this is why we don't want to do the work in the relationship.
Right.
But you got to understand you have to do the work, because that's an assignment that is attached to your purpose.
Right.
So even as a pastor, okay, I'm going to flip and put my pastor hat on for a second. As a pastor, this is why we have to be careful about this whole church hurt thing, this whole lie that the enemy has perpetuated, where we got this whole quote unquote church hurt thing, where you get hurt in your family, you get hurt on your job, you get hurt in your sorority, your fraternity, but you don't go around calling it fraternity hurt, a sorority hurt, a family hurt, a job hurt, but we got church hurt. Why? Because the church that God assigned you to has some people in there that are going to rub you wrong. They're going to get on your nerve, because it's a part of your growth process. And you got to stop buying into the fallacy of that, because they're there because they are part of the assignment on your life. Derek.
I'm sorry, I'm bursting because and Emerald had to put her hand on my knee, y'all. Y'all don't know this little tricks when we're with each other. Emerald puts her hand on my knee to let me know when I'm talking too much, or I'm too hyped, or I need to calm down. But I'm bursting because I think that is very indicative of our family, and something that I posted today that doesn't have to do with our family. A lot of the times when we get into these situations, it's because it's really not a family or a disagreement issue. It's a not being willing to sit in discomfort on behalf of purpose issue.
Yeah, that's good.
I think a lot of the times we run from discomfort. We run from painful conversations. We run from uncomfortable moments. We do our best, and what we don't realize that we're not running from it physically. We're using our emotions to run from it, because as opposed to sitting here and listening and getting insight and listening to what you're saying, I allow myself to get angry and emotional, because that's easier than listening and dealing with the discomfort. It's easy for me to get upset. It's easy for me to lash out. What's uncomfortable is when I have to sit there and listen to you and get insight on what you're saying, because what happens after that, anything that I get information on, I am now responsible for. That now means that because I have this information, I have to change. I have to grow. I have to leave this moment with new insight and new revelation. And that means all of those things are now going to apply in a different way to the purpose that we have in our lives. So if I choose to run and choose anger and choose strife, that is the easy route. It's easy to be emotional. The hard thing to do is to sit in the discomfort. And I think that relates back to our family.
Well, hang on, Derek. Hang on, Derek.
Oh, yeah.
So hang on. So one of the reasons why it's easier for a man to fight back, and I don't know, it feel like I just kind of want to focus on that physical too. I don't know who's watching, but I just feel like it needs to be said. The reason why men will fight physically in that confrontation and not talk is because women got words, and a lot of men don't have the words to have that discussion, that conversation. Why is that? Somebody said in a given day, I'm just throwing a number out, a woman, and it may be many more, a woman has 26,000 words. And a man has like 7,000. I mean, a woman's words is totally disproportionate to the amount of words that a man has. Why is that? Because you women grew up with baby dolls. Oh, come here, baby. Comb their hair. Let's have some tea together. I mean, you talk to your baby dolls. You had conversations. You just got busy. Me, my mama gave me, I wanted Action Jackson. My boy Barry and my friends had G.I. Joe. Man, we wasn't talking to G.I. Joe. We was, boom, cow, bang, bang, boom, wow. We wasn't talking. We didn't have the conversation.
That's good, Dad.
So now we in relationships, married, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. The male is at a disadvantage. In many cases, there's some men that learn a lot of words and very outspoken and do great. Some are great orators, Martin Luther King and otherwise. But the average male doesn't have as many words as that woman, and he finds it a little bit harder to engage and have and pull his thoughts together and do it in a intimate, and instead when you can't find the right
word, that's our grandmother. Talk, grandma.
When you don't have the words and you want to shut the conversation down, you intimidate, you buck, you get in the face, and you fight.
Can I explain what you're saying? Because I think in reality, what you're touching into is this concept. And when I say this, I want people that are listening to the call to hear this correctly. There's a concept that's being talked about called toxic masculinity. And what the concept is saying is not saying don't have masculine or don't have masculinity. What it's saying is that there is a type of thought in which we train our men, the way we teach our men, the way we raise our men, that causes men to feel like it is necessary to shut off the part of themselves that communicates, that uses the words, that has emotions. We talk to men. I saw this post on Facebook the other day that said, it's a wonderful thing to hear a man say that hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
But when I saw the post, underneath the comment, I saw men after men after men saying, no, I ain't saying that because I'm gonna look like a punk. No, I'm not saying that because I'm gonna look like another word. I'm gonna look like a girl. I'm gonna look like this. And it's because they have been trained as men to receive speaking out and communicating their feelings and associate that with femininity, when that is not being feminine. Communicating your emotions and communicating your feelings doesn't mean, and on the flip side, I'm challenging men to be more communicative and use their voices, but we have to challenge women as well, because a lot of the times women who hear men express their emotions relegate them to feminine men.
Right.
On that same post that I saw a bunch of women on there saying, if my man ever said that to me, I said, get out my face, stop acting like a girl. We don't realize that we have trained ourselves to view the proper communication of emotions from men as something that is feminine. And that is not the truth. It is not
men,
the
a lot of men call that being soft. And
Right.
they don't want to be soft. But check this out. When you so hard, and listen to this, dads, particularly if you got daughters, if you so hard and you always hard and you're never affectionate and loving, you're putting your daughter at a disadvantage, because most daughters want a daddy just like the example that she saw. And when she gets in a relationship, if she always had a hard, tough dad that never showed emotion and affection, that's the kind of man many times she gonna have. And guess what? She gonna think that's the norm.
Right.
Kirsten know good well, don't try it, Bubba. Because my daddy taught me, he loved me, he talked to me, he showed me how a man is supposed to love and care for me. And she know exactly what values she wants in a man, looking at her daddy. Some men put their daughters at a disadvantage because they don't know what a good man looks like. And that's why they get in so many toxic relationships, because they just don't know. They haven't had the example of someone affectionate. Guess what? Daddy, you supposed to be her man until she get under somebody else's covering. You supposed to be the one to give her that affection, say good things to her, talk about how beautiful she is, talk about, give her self-esteem. A lot of women lack in self-esteem. Why? Because daddy, the man who had the covering over her life, never poured the important characteristics in her so that she can go out in the world. She's starving. What she do? That's why Bubba always get in, because Bubba know how to say,
Who is Bubba? Who is
okay,
Bubba?
this is good.
Bubba's anybody that look like a dude is coming with the wrong kind of game for your daughter. That's Bubba.
Yeah, we're gonna close here, but I want to draw out two statements that I saw in the chat that I thought were powerful. Tabitha Renee said, we have essentially stopped thinking that silence is self-control, but it's not. And she was putting that in relation to us isolating ourselves instead of dealing with conversations. We think, and I felt convicted, Tabitha, when you said it, because Emerald challenges me all the time about not walking away from conversation. And in my mind, I've convinced myself that I'm walking away from the conversation because I'm trying to use self-control. When in reality, you're right. That walking away in silence isn't self-control. It's an attempt to escape the discomfort of the conversation.
Actually, it displays a weakness. It displays a weakness because what it articulates and what it says is that you can't control your emotions enough to have a conversation that is productive. And therein lies the whole crux of this entire conversation, which is about, in order to communicate and fight fair in your relationships, the key element you need is self-control, where you are controlling your emotional life and your emotional thoughts so you can hear the heart of what a person is saying. Because we get attached to the emotional piece of it and we totally lose what are they trying to say to us.
And the last comment I want to talk about, because I think it wraps all this up, is Kiana McNeil said, love is so powerful. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, that is the whole point of this conversation called Loving Through Disagreements. We're talking about that agape love. If you allow love to take the lead in how you communicate and how you have disagreements with people, then God and the Holy Spirit will guide your tongue on how to deal with discomfort, how to deal with painful conversations, and how to come back from the other side of those conversations. I'll end by saying this, because this is what Kirsten talked on. Sometimes we get to the point in relationships, hopefully not familial relationships, where you have to just separate. Where at the end of the day, there are times, we were talking about Insecure yesterday. If you saw Insecure, there was an episode last week where Molly just said, I no longer want to be in this friendship. And Issa was like, okay. And it was a very painful conversation. Now, if you've seen the finale, I'm not going to tell you what happens in the last episode. But in that moment, Issa had to decide that although I love you, love also gives me the indication when you can no longer handle this relationship and I have to let you go.
Yeah.
Love, just like love will keep us together, love will give us the indicator for when you can no longer do this conversation in this moment, and I have to just let it go or let you go.
Look, I wanted to say, when you said that, I just heard love will keep us together. But anyway, I wanted to say, I heard that in my mind, but I
heard to the left, to the left.
Look, what I
heard just the opposite. But Derek said cut the relationship. I heard Beyonce say to the left, to the left.
Let me make this point so we can close.
Good night.
Let me make this point. So oftentimes, I think that one of the important things about what you just said, Derek, is because somebody said, I feel attacked. Oftentimes, when we feel attacked, we feel that. Not oftentimes, matter of fact, I know this. It's all the time. When we feel attacked, by what someone is communicating to us or saying to us, 9 times out of 10, when it hits that place where you have an emotional response, it is because that person has hit some place in you that is not yet healed.
Yeah.
It is not yet healed. And that's why you respond the way that you do. You respond from a place of hurt. And that's where we get the phrase, hurt people hurt people. So if you're the person that every time somebody tries to correct you, you can never receive the correction because you take everything personal, because everything is personal because there is something in you that is hurt.
Right.
Because healed people don't respond the same way.
That's good.
Healed people don't respond like that.
I think this has been a great conversation. I haven't seen any comments come up. And it may just mean that this has been good. I mean, questions come up. And it may just mean that this has been really resonating with people. If this has been resonating with you, go ahead and let us know now in the comments if this touched you in some way or changed the way you think, because that is the entire point of us coming together. I want to close by touching on a point that we made earlier. The reason why we're so willing to go through the conversations and the uncomfortable moments that we go through, the reason why me and Emerald can have a disagreement so fresh and we can come on here even when both of us ain't all the way ready for it,
Right.
and talk about our disagreements, is because we understood as a family that we had to get through these conversations because our purpose collectively as a family was tied to the conversations we were having. The purpose and who we were supposed to be in the world is tied to one another. So because we have that realization, we don't have the luxury of letting go and divorcing ourselves and running out of conversations because somebody's breakthrough is tied to the very real, relevant, relatable, and relevant conversations that we are having on a day-to-day basis. Right. So that would be our prayer in closing. Our prayer is that these conversations are not just for you to hear and understand what we're going through, but it's more so that the chains that are on your heart and on your mind and the stone that your heart has turned to because of disagreements and hurt and pain from people's experiences will begin to be released off of you in the name of Jesus. Amen. That you will be able to be freed from the opinions, from the hurt, from the pain of conversations in the past, and you will be able to approach your conversations in your future in love and approach your purpose in love, because we are not flawless, but we are faithful. Mm-hmm. And faithful means that at the end of the day, our love and God's love for us is consistent.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
You got it, guys. We love you guys so much. Kirsten, tell them about the podcast again.
Yes, again, guys, help us grow, share, as well as we are now available on podcasts, so you can listen to us on the go. We are on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Went live a couple of days ago. And so all of our channels are at The Modern Christian Family. Just search The Modern Christian Family on all of those. Subscribe to the YouTube as well. The links for all of those, if you have any trouble finding it, it's on our Instagram. So The Modern Christian Family on there.
We love you guys. Y'all stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with another subject, and we can't wait to see you guys again.
Thank you.
Share this stream. If it was good to you, go ahead and click share before you get out. All right? We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.